Good evening. It is Matt Rogers. We continue with this broadcast explaining the coming cataclysms with Nibiru Planet X. Seriously, while limiting population, therefore negative human impact on the environment is certainly a good thing in itself, the sense that its cutting down emissions will not stop or reverse the progressing changes and the recent rapid rise that could be attributed to human intervention as it is in global warming that was impressed in the last 20 to 25 years. Records show that the atmosphere has warmed up by 0.67 degrees Celsius over the past century, and yet the ocean temperatures have risen 1.5 to 3 degrees over the last 50 years. However, it is that the ocean, so very deep and cold that it's warmed up and it's almost so hot in rising temperatures, the atmosphere, why would this slight warming of the air affect the oceans? Oceans have 1,000 times more heat capacity than the atmosphere. This means the oceans can heat the air far more than air can heat the oceans. The atmosphere would have to heat a lot before it could heat the oceans a little. What should be especially noted, most of the oceans heating occurs down deep oceans, the rifts. The ocean photographers are baffled by temperature measurements so deep that the oceans are some 20 years to find more heat than expected. More surfaces of waters and the depths of the oceans are warming. Polar ice is melting rapidly, both north and south poles. But moreover, oceans in the Antarctic, 90% of the Arctic ice is below the ocean surface, exposed to water. The warming oceans comes underneath the ice shelves and melts them from the bottom. Glaciers, warming waters. It is rising in depths to erode the ice from below. But melt this occurring in the depths of ice, massive silver land, as well as which especially alarming. Climate geologists, in some cases, huge sections of middle Antarctica ice, scientists have no explanation of the phenomena so far. The European part of Russia, Siberia, Alaska, and northwest Canada has seen most of the unusual universal increase in the main annual temperatures since 1970s. Boundary has been shifting north 20 to 30 kilometers per year. This has already been starting to bring up the infrastructure trouble of those regions where it has been built on as like the polar ice. It is also melting from below. The best explanation will be that the deep oceans are warmer due to the heat coming from the Earth's core. Constantly migrates from the core of the Earth to the surface. This heat keeps lakes from freezing solid after ice forms on the surface to keep the ground from freezing for more than 6 feet deep in the winter. It causes deep well water to be hot and can sometimes be used. Of this heat, the oceans are warmer because of the core of the Earth has heated up. The brothers coming closer, folks, the 12 planets in the disturbing area of near close Earth, when it's very close, translates into the warm oceans and the ice from underneath. Geologists all over the world are observing signs of very disturbed mantle core of the Earth. The outer core of the mantle are generally extremely heated up in showing signs of this mantle velocity and going down due to the increased temperatures which cause increased earthquakes and volcanic activity. The volcanoes above the sea levels are best known but the vast majority of the world's volcanoes live beneath the sea, sitting along the mid-ocean ridge systems along the plate boundaries. Most of the Earth's volcanoes, up to 80%, occurs at the ocean bottom and erupts, predicting unobserved covers from the human eye by the ocean waters. An astonishing total of close to 3.5 million submarine volcanoes is estimated to exist worldwide. Vast majority are located in the depths of the oceans. Ocean rifts are currently experiencing the unpredictable levels of activity, going up by several folds in 2005. There are currently over 5,000 active underwater volcanoes. Underwater volcanoes are pumping red-hot lava, 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, hot into the seas, heating up. Superheat waters inside the vents can reach 750 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. The net result of this action is thermal heating of the oceans at key points in depth ocean trenches, which is carried aloft, eventually resulting in heating the atmosphere. Climate is controlled by the oceans, not the other way around. As oceans are heated, ocean currents become erratic and create on the disturbances of the atmosphere above. There is more water vapor released from warmer oceans, contributing to more powerful, more energetic atmospheric process. There is more turbulence in the air of massive distributions. Atmospheric calculations winds up of high velocity and created to driven over land areas. Warmer seas pumped up moisture into the air, which eventually results in more predictions. Today, the world is concerned about limit industrial emissions, but this factor is not even 10% of CO2 emissions as a result of tectonic process. Put 2.3% as much as CO2 into the air as humans every year. One volcano can put out the amount of CO2 into the atmosphere that whole human industry produces in a decade. Volcanoes have been doing this for 5 billion years. Folks, the reason why CO2 levels in the atmosphere are increasingly is because the warmer oceans release more CO2. It is estimated that the atmosphere contains 700 GTC gigatons of carbon, while the surface oceans contain 1,000 GTC. To the deep oceans contain 30,000 GTC. Oceans exchange 10 times as much CO2 of the atmosphere. Humans produce 90 GTC, and 90 times faster oceans regulate CO2 in the atmosphere. Undersea volcanoes are estimated to account to 75% of global annual magma and gases input. Gigantic gas emissions occur, which humans' emissions could not even compare to that stage. Increasing activities of undersea volcanoes, the rise in CO2 concentrations in the oceans leading to ocean blooms. These blooms then control with the volcano and the oceans many times over the course of billions of years. That does all this volcanic CO2 go? Oceans tie up extra CO2 as calcium, carbonate, and also coral reefs gradually form limestone. Recently increased volcano activity and deep ocean rifts only add slightly to CO2 concentration, with heat oceans releasing the excess of CO2 into the atmosphere. Rising CO2 levels are the result of warming, not to cause the cataclysms. Earth is not the only planet to be affected by the magnetic push of Planet X, Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, and also others. Share the fate of the Earth global warming on Mars, as well-known story between 1975 and the year 2000. 0.65 Celsius degrees, much faster than Earth on Mars. The findings from NASA Mars Odyssey orbiter is giving indications of recent climate change on Mars. Jeffrey Ford, project scientist of NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Pasadena, explains with the scientists who study Mars have concluded that the red planet has been active changes recently, and the cracks were noticed on sand flanks 3 years after they were photographed. In 2002 and 2025, the surveyor of the Odyssey revealed that the area carbon dioxide ice caps and glaciers consist of frozen carbon dioxide gas near Mars. The South Pole had been diminished with 3 Martian summer in a row. Scientists have suggested it is such an intense cause setting off stronger winds on the surface which are changing Mars is relief. Other planets are being affected in our solar system by Nibiru and Planet X. This evidence of past polar shifts on Mars found by scientists. The degree of the ship lesser than the Earth experiences, because there is less on Mars to cork, which is called of solidified. Damn those little green markings. They must be working in their little coal plants, releasing greenhouse gases for the consumption engines for cutting down all the masses on Mars. Oh, what? Those little green bastards. And even the Jupiter is now too new to storm, and new red spots on Jupiter hints at climate change. Global temperatures change about 10 Kelvin degrees. These of the atmosphere that leads to the formation of new vorticles. 2025, and now from going back to the periodic date of the year 2005 developed a tilt in its axis. Europa, Jupiter's moon, is noted to be heating up to, and also May of 2008. Europa actually had a pole shift. Its axis rotating Iceland poles shifted almost 90 degrees and changed their places with the equator. The previous axis is now located about 10 degrees from the present equator. Wandering poles left scars on Europa. Europa adjusts to the practical flaws coming through and the approaching Planet X and other planets and moons in the solar system. Saturn itself has a rather warm south pole, and the temperatures in that region suddenly jumped to 35 Kelvin degrees. In July of 2004, this probe sent unexpected new data from Saturn. The rotational period appeared longer, and the determination in 1981 of today, the rotation period of the planet approximately 6 minutes longer than 30 years ago. Scientists are sure about the position of the measurements, old ones and also well as new ones. What more in this case appears that have still affected the same manner as Jupiter learning its tongue. A moon of Saturn's was expected to be frozen and cold suddenly with this telescope informed and also generates photography and showing heat signatures seem to be of these calculations based on the solar energy itself according to the existing models, and there was also evidence of polar wander of the moon. The climate of Neptune was previously, and relativity was recently changing. Lockwood and Hamill argued the Geophysical Research Letters, Volume 34 in 2007. Global warming was detected on Triton, Neptune's largest moon, between 1989 and 1998. Temperatures jumped to 5% on the absolute. Temperatures jumped again. The Kelvin scale, same relative of this temperature by 22 degrees Fahrenheit in 9 years. And it's seen that those vermin even got to Pluto is undergoing global, as evidenced by a threefold increase in the planet's atmosphere, the pressure for 14 years, an associated increase to the temperatures estimated to be around 3.5 Fahrenheit degrees. That is 300% increase, which is the highest increase in any planet's solar system, and its increase as Pluto's orbits away from the Sun. The Earth is experiencing warming, although less dramatic than previous examples. With Venus, this planet doesn't belong in the list of planets where recent warming has been demonstrated, in which is known to be currently warming. The same case with Mercury. Stimulaceous warnings on Earth and Mars and other planets in the solar system suggest outside cause of an unknown object factors must be affecting all beats simultaneously. But indeed, folks, but even more astonishing in the fact that outer planets are affected more. We hear Pluto warming up to 4 times of giant planets in the movements of a lesser degree. Mars' ice caps are shrinking and the planet's surface is radically reshaping. And with the Earth warming up to 0.6 degrees, and Venus and Mercury, those planets closest to the Sun, barely affected at all. This proves that the cause of this is not the Sun, another favorite explanation. Global warming excuse has fallen out of favor recently to be replaced by its alternative blame, the Sun. Folks, somehow science is starting to emerge lately, trying to demonstrate the correlation between solar activity with the Earth and events like earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes and floods and storms. A statement that the Sun has affected the core of the Earth is ridiculous. Solar flares, these may affect radio transmissions and cause electromagnetic interference, but do not be fooled by the magma deep under the crust, because the core is heated up by the solar flare's surface. Would have to be a way of warming up the core, which is clearly not the case. Something is going on in our solar system, folks. There is a huge object, the destroyer, that is changing our solar system, heating up other planets. Disturbances with the Sun. The Sun is becoming more active because of Nemesis, the destroyer, Nibiru. The charts are completely off. Global warming through the media is a complete hoax. We all know what is happening in our solar system now. Changes around the skies. You can see the evidence building up. These charts show a big increase in 2006 suggest that the evidence is solidly in the side of the solar brightness having relatively little effort on the global climate. Solar variations do not play a major role in a present-day observed climate change. Third assessment reported a paper, folks, that came with the other scientists concludes that the most likely formation of global warming from their forces in 7 to 1% of the 20th century is that negligible for warming since 1980. This scientist found that the solar cycle fails to explain the 0 points of Celsius degree temperatures rise again in 1980. This curves. After 1980, it was a large deviation in the wild satellite observations show no increase in the trend of solar output, something else is acting on the climate. The apparent strong displayed of these graphs has been obtained in incorrect handling of the physical data. These graphs are still widely referred to in the literature, and they are misleading characters have not yet been generally recognized. These reports again, the scientific and the historian worshippers way back thousands of years ago, and now to 2003, the studies rights of the sunspot cycle generally popular through that of first of the half of the century. Governments have collected a lot of weather data to play with the story that people find correlations between the sunspot cycles and also select weather patterns in rainfall. In England, fit the cycle maybe the New England would respect. The scientists, enthusiastic amateurs, insisted that they had found patterns no liable enough to make predictions sooner or even later. Through every prediction failed. One example was a highly credible forecast of a dry spell in Africa during the sunspot minimum of the early 1930s. For the period turned out to be wet. The meteorologists later recalled the subject of sunspots and weather relationships fell into dispute. So, their flares and extended. The solar cycle has been planned for decades to be used as a cover-up for the Earth changes caused by Planet X. Planet X, in its presence between the Earth and the Sun, is not causing any additional solar activity other than ruffles on the Sun's surface, and only additional activity in its reporting. Those would shield. The truth will always otherwise declare that it's because the increasing changes of the Earth. But into nothing has changed. The ancient times solar eclipse was blamed for all sorts of bad things. Solar flares is not something that is common in man on Earth. Face of Earth can be recognizable. Those made up freely to disinformation for those of the data hands of the public, released from the control of NASA, control of the SOHO satellite archives of the past, can shut down the satellite for days, giving whatever excuse to choose to the public, cannot call them for accounts. They can manufacture anything, folks. The report of a real event, the sun usually operates on an 11-year cycle with maximum activity occurring in the middle of the cycle. The last cycle reached its peak in 2001 to 2005 and even 2006, where the years of the solar minimum of the next cycle was expected to reach a peak sometime around 2012. This merely anticipating and preparing to the point of the sun as a reason for climate anomaly increases. The volcanic activity. 18 months after the official start of the solar cycle, 24 observers are looking currently at the ball of the hot plasma sun at the wrong area, pointing to other points to show the public of what they're doing. So that short video that I've spoke about as well, I've written down lots of different documentations, and I've been studying a lot about the activity of the sun and also looking about the excuses that the establishment, the scientific community explain that we are to blame for climate change. Folks, the truth is, again, that I've demonstrated with this short raw video explaining about the volcanic activity deep under the oceans. What is causing the volcanic activity to start to grow through these different number of years? Because the core of the Earth, there is a huge body in our solar system. We talk about Nemesis. Way back in the 1960s, we were all brought to learn through college and schooling of being in a binary system, and everything just changed. Things just change every time in different years. All of a sudden, They changed something. No longer is Pluto a planet. They've changed something yet again. So always remember the past. Look at the past, at the evidence. That millions of people around the world have been taught that we're in a binary system. And the binary brown dwarf star, Nemesis, is approaching back, causing not just 1, 2, or 3 planets, but even more in our solar system to heat up. But still, our temperature on Mother Earth is slightly warming up now. So thank you for watching this very short broadcast. I'm going to come back to you with more information about Nibiru, Planet X, Wormwood Star, the coming cataclysms. It's so important. And please, to every single one of you, have a nice Christmas and a Happy New Year from Matt Rogers.